Hello, it's Bishop Martin, the Bishop of Goma and a CMS mission partner. Goma is in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. We border Uganda and Rwanda. The city has 2 million people and the diocese itself is twice the size of Belgium. In the east of Congo, we've known conflict for nearly 35 years and we're once again under occupation since the Rwandan-backed M23 rebel group seized the city in January. They had resurfaced in 2021 and have been taking ever greater swathes of land for the last 3 years before finally seizing the city of Goma in January. And since then, they've moved south to the city of Bukavu and have taken control of much land in North and South Kivu. The immediate aftermath of the occupation saw 8,500 deaths, a peak in sexual violence, arbitrary arrests, public beatings and executions, kidnappings and raids on hospitals. And the number of internally displaced people and the number of children out of school increased by hundreds of thousands. But they arrived ill-prepared to govern, and no one knew how long they were going to stay, but they are still here. Although the banks and the airport and the prison and the courts remain closed, there is now more of a sense of calm in the city. Many of the suburbs feel a bit safer after dark, and music is again heard in the evenings. But it is an uneasy calm. Scores are still being settled and the violence can flare up at any moment. Arbitrary arrests are still far too common. And the experience on the ground is that the M23 still rule with terror. But for us as a diocese, there have also been encouragements. The church is still seen as the one remaining institution that can be trusted. And in the DRC, there's always a church at the heart of every village and community. After the city fell to the rebels, we saw an increased attendance in several of our parishes. Those who don't usually come to church came asking for prayer, and those on the fringes started coming more regularly. During the conflict, many people felt able to take shelter in the Anglican schools and churches, although some of our schools had been used as military bases where all the tables and chairs were burnt as firewood. In the weeks following the fall of the city, through the generosity of Anglicans across the world, we were able to distribute emergency cash to 60 of our clergy, 50 diocesan staff, and over 200 school teachers whose salaries had simply stopped being paid by the central government. And we've been able to rebuild or repair 8 out of our 109 schools ahead of the start of this academic year, so that almost 3,000 pupils can study in better conditions than before. And in the sadness, in the pain, in the suffering, there are some real signs of hope. Because of most of the diocese is under M23 control, it means getting round is easier. We've been able to visit parishes that have been inaccessible for the last 3 years to see how they're doing and to encourage them. Land purchase and construction are less heavily regulated, and since January we've been able to build 12 churches and have bought 18 plots of land for church planting. This summer we're able to hold larger scale evangelism campaigns in 4 of our secondary schools in the city, where over 6,000 children heard the gospel and 1,000 came to faith, and our school chaplains are now busy following them up. We're seeing particular fruit in Walikale, which is our archdeaconry in the forest, 2 days away by motorbike from Goma. And here God has given us an open door for the gospel, and we've been busy training church leaders, buying land, building schools and a guest house, and planting churches. Since 2024, the church in Walikale has gone from a handful of struggling groups of believers to 17 churches, each with their own land and their own church building. 19 leaders have already finished 2 or 3 years of theological training or in the process of being trained. We've heard some exciting stories of the power of God breaking into people's lives through the monthly evangelism campaigns in Walikale. And this is one testimony of a young brother saved during an open-air evangelism campaign in Karumia. He said this: "My heart was touched. I trembled. I lost balance when the preacher preached the good news. I felt as if he was talking about me. when those who were going to receive Jesus Christ were called, Jesus was calling me. I was listening to his way, telling me, come to me, come to me. I quickly came to meet Jesus. I was a witch doctor in the service of Satan. I'd sacrificed my life and the health of my family to our ancestral deities. But glory to God, through Jesus Christ, I'm a Christian saved and ready to serve him. The bigger picture for us as a diocese and part of our day-to-day calling as a church is also to pursue peace and reconciliation in the midst of conflict. For 4 years, we've been working with all faith leaders across the city, issuing joint media statements to change the narrative of hate and suspicion, doing weekly radio broadcasts to millions of people, and organising inter-community cultural and sporting events. Unfortunately, one of our football matches for peace had to be abandoned at half-time because of fighting between the opposing teams. But at the heart of our peace work is training religious and community leaders in self-transformation, teaching them to find peace with God and with themselves, and then being sent as peacemakers to bring peace and reconciliation to their families, to their churches, and to their communities. After one such training, focusing on youth, leaders from 4 different ethnic groups, usually at each other's throats, took to the stage, joined hands and gave a public commitment from now on they would work together to bring healing to the community. And increasingly within this area of self-transformation, we're focusing on trauma healing for pastors and for leaders, recognising that this latest conflict is just another layer on top of previous trauma, and believing that the pastors are much better able to help their own congregations if they themselves have experienced de-traumatisation, have found some measure of healing from past trauma. And I'll end with a recent story of healing and reconciliation that has profoundly moved many of us. Canon John, the Archdeacon of Goma, retired this year after 49 years of ministry and 50 years of marriage. The first 10 years of marriage were hard as his wife Providence fell ill and they couldn't have children. Eventually they did have 2 children, although they'd always wanted more. Earlier this year, Canon John was with Mama Providence in a trauma healing seminar. There was another participant called Ange who gave her testimony around the trauma of never knowing her own father. She was now in her 30s, she had 6 children, but she spoke of how she missed the father she'd never known. She also told of how her husband had abandoned her tailoring business had been looted in the fighting. Everyone gave her space to share and sympathised with her situation. But Canon John did something different. Touched by her story, he had a whispered conversation with his wife. And then in the break, they both approached Ange to say that they'd always longed for more children and would love to adopt her as their own adult daughter. Ange readily agreed and immediately took their family name and started calling them Mum and Dad. Their only son, Samuel, who happened to be in the same seminar, came forward publicly to embrace and welcome Ange into the family, and you can imagine the reaction of the other participants. Canon John came to my office the following week to tell me that everyone in the community knew that they now had a new daughter. And earlier this year, Ange brought 2 of her children to the cathedral to be baptised. I want to end simply by thanking you all for your prayers, your interest, and your financial support for the work of God in the Diocese of Goma. May God bless you all. Thank you.